I still have family in the fireside room. Can you please come and be seated? Okay, now it's working a little better. When I said that I had family in the fireside room, it was Eduardo that I was talking about. All right, so I'd like to open today by first just letting you know, my name is Jonathan Case. I am Luella Suderman Case's son, and we are here today to honor her life as a celebration. A wonderful life lived, 96 3/4. A praise to the Father. A life lived not perfectly, of course, but with Him in mind. A wonderful thing. I'm to remind you that bathrooms are over on this side of the building. You have to go out into that little there. And that I am going to open in prayer. Father, we are so grateful for this time that we get to spend together, honoring my mother, Luella Suderman Case, and enjoying the company of the family and others that have come. Thank you so much for the time we get to spend together. And we do pray that you are glorified. In Jesus' name. Reese has got some songs for us to sing.
Bottom. So we've got some songs that we've collectively figured out that we wanted to sing in honor of Luella, some that would be significant in her life, kind of as a testimony. So the first one is on page 337, I Know Whom I Have Believed. I know not why God's one trust grace to me He hath made known, nor why unworthy Christ in love redeemed me for His own. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him against that day. I know not how this saving faith to me He did impart, nor how believing in His word wrought peace within my heart. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him against that day. I know not how the Spirit moves, convincing men of sin, revealing Jesus through the Word, creating faith in Him. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that He is unto him against that day. I know not when my Lord may come, at night or noonday fair, nor if I'll walk the vale with him or meet him in the air. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. And if you'll turn to page 330, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Through what has promised good to me, his word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. And if you'll turn to page 210 for My Jesus, I Love Thee. My Jesus, I love thee. I know thou art mine. For thee all the follies of sin I resign. My gracious Redeemer, my Savior art thou. If
Good afternoon. So glad to see all of you here. I am Lois, and I think I said that to most of you as you came in. I'm Luella's middle daughter. I had two older brothers, and then Tim, and then Miriam. That's kind of the way we were growing up. I wanted to give a little history on Luella's life, and so I'll begin with that. Luella Suderman Case was born in June of 1927 to a Mennonite family in northern Oklahoma near Enid. They were part of a large Mennonite community of families who depended upon each other for livelihood, fellowships, and relationships. Most of them were farmers. She grew up during a period of American history called the Dust Bowl, which coincided with the Great Depression. Luella was the youngest in a family of older siblings and quickly learned how to work the farm. When Luella began school, she needed to create a birth certificate and had the opportunity to name herself. Since she didn't know that it was customary to have a middle name, she excluded it. She never had one. When Luella when she was 12, her father died of a protracted illness and cancer, and her oldest brother, Joe, became her anchor, and she was often with him in the fields. A few years later, Joe went to medical school and became a doctor. The story is that the family used all the resources to put him through college, knowing that he would be able to help the family better by doing so. And he did. He put both Luella and her older sister, Elsie, through college for nurses training. Luella began nursing in Enid, and at the same time, a family from Missouri came to Enid to go to a nearby university. Ellen worked as Luella's aide and quickly grew very fond of her. Eventually, she began telling her older brother about this very pretty, kind nurse and shared similar qualities about her brother with Luella. According to her Aunt Ellen, her matchmaking scheme worked, and they were married in May of 1951 after a very short courtship. 2 years later, her oldest brother, Christian, was born, and within 7 years, Ross and Luella had 5 children. Things were rocky at first for a young preacher and his family, and they moved frequently, but finally settled for a short time in Mason City, Illinois, in a tiny, close-knit community. This was in the 1950s. The nation was grappling with the civil rights movement, led by Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Dad wanted to do more to desegregate churches and was drawn to Indianapolis and the ministry of Jim Jones. For 2 years, we lived in the ghetto of Indianapolis, going to school with mostly Black inner-city kids. Mom went back to nursing, and during this time, Dad left the ministry to become a teacher. When Jim Jones of People's Temple moved to Northern California, we followed and made a home in Ukiah. During this time, Dad and Jim Jones split, and Dad tried to get others in Jim Jones's group to leave the church as well. And we all know how that ended. Luella continued to work, choosing to become a night nurse, and often went without sleep. I remember her having terrible headaches that seemed to last for days. Dad continued to be involved in the issues that divided our community. When I was in high school, he opened our home to the homeless, first groups of Jesus freaks, mostly young men who were ex-drug addicts, and new believers. They came in droves to our home, some staying for a night and others for weeks or months. We have lots of memories of this. Mom supported Dad in all of his endeavors as best that she could. After Dad died in 1992, Mom retired from nursing and soon after experienced a severe house fire. These 3 events seemed to give Mom the opportunity to restart her own life, and she began branching out for the first time. I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for coming, And we're going to open the mic for your own memories at this time. So if you, is this on? It's on? Okay. So did you want to do this? Okay.
And many. I have many stories too. Doesn't feel like I'm talking to anything. Okay, now that sounds better. One thing I want to bring out when her growing up, she was born, she told me, during the time that her mother would be putting in the garden. Her mother could not put in the garden that year because she had to take care of a newborn. And she never had a birthday party or anything like that because that's when you put in the garden. You don't have time to celebrate birthdays. They would have very small celebrations in their family. For Christmas, they always got a box of oranges from their relatives in California. Her dad's family had moved to California, and then his relatives would send the family a box of oranges, and that was the highlight of Christmas.
All right, is there anyone else that would like a mic? Any brave souls? All right, wonderful. And say your name first, please.
My name is Kathy Cobb. Am I using this correctly? Okay. I met Luella here at this church when David Fassold was the preacher. And the first time I met Luella, it was after church and we were having coffee. And she turned to me and she said something like, "Did you like what he said?" And I was kind of stunned. I said, "Who?" She said, "The preacher." And I can't remember after that. I just had the impression that she was listening to the sermon and that she had an opinion about it. And I thought that was so wonderful, you know. And then later on, I got to know her a little bit better. And she was in the mobile home park. And Judy, went up to Luella and said, "You know, I'd really like to learn the Bible better. I'd like to learn more about the Bible." And so they started a Bible study. And I heard about it, and I wanted to get in on that also. So there was the three of us doing Bible study. And then we got into Kay Arthur studies. And we went through Genesis, and we went through Isaiah, and we just was going all the New Testament books. We were going through everything. I think we had for 7-8 years going. I know it was a long time, and Judy was the first one with Luella. Then I joined, and then Susan joined, and then Margaret. She was with us now and then, and Daryl now and then, and I think Teresa, you were in around the end of the study going. Yeah. And Luella was just, she knew her Bible, and she knew the truth, and if one of us got off on the wrong road, she had a very gentle way of bringing us back, and she was a wonderful, godly woman. So.
Thank you so much. All right, anyone else, please? We'd love to hear your stories.
Boy, sure is a lot of people here that love Luella. I'll tell you, look at everybody. Listen, I'm a member of this church, and I want to let people know that, I want to let the family know how much that our congregation adored Luella. What a spiritual, loving, precious lady. Loves everybody. When we first came to this building, how long has it been here, Charlie? About 10 years. Let's see, Luella was 97. Is that right? So she was near 97? I asked her one day, I said, Luella, who's here to pick you up? She said, what do you mean pick me up? I said, is there someone coming after you? Driving you back? She said, I'm driving here. What are you talking about? Remember that, Charlie? She was driving here at 90 something years old. I'm telling you, amazing. But I just want to let the family know that the ones that don't go to our church, that we absolutely adored her, and she's got a place in heaven. I'm telling you, right up front, on the front row. She was a wonderful lady, and we're going to miss her terribly. She sat right here. That was her seat right there. And she was just adorable lady, sweet. I don't know how anybody that ever, I mean, even in the grocery store, couldn't be crazy about her. She was wonderful and beautiful and so soft and so loving, had a precious heart. And the main thing is she loved Jesus. And you could see it in her. You could see it in her face, and you can see it in everything she did. God bless you, everybody, for coming. I just wanted to say that in behalf of our congregation here.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse. I am, I guess I should say, Grandma's grandson. Kind of giveaway, a little dead giveaway there. But my earliest memory of grandmother would have been when she was still at Ukiah. I remember going to her house. I think the folks dumped us off on Grandma for the 4th of July season, and I remember us, because 4th of July is my favorite holiday of the year. I remember Grandma would make me this bowl with a bunch of barbecue chips, which are my favorite. They're still my favorite, and like a cheese stick in there. And we'd go outside and we'd sit under the stars and watch the fireworks. And that was my earliest memory. But I've been able to see her like even when she moved closer to, actually just down the street here on Appy. I think it's that way. Yeah, that way. But so we had goats growing up. And so when you have 2 dairy goats, you get about 2 gallons of milk a day, which is a lot of milk you have to dispose of. And so she got the bright idea to make ice cream out of this. Yeah. And so, like, she was taking home gallons and gallons of milk, and we didn't know where it all went, but we'd get like a quarter of it back as ice cream. And it's like she's taking a pretty heavy tax or giving it to her friends, or I don't know where it's going. But all this goat milk got turned into ice cream and then sent back to us with like chocolate chips and stuff in it. And I remember going to her house many times and watching her make it, and she'd feed us when the parents wanted to get rid of us. But she was a wonderful grandma who really went the extra, like making ice cream all the time for her grandkids and for the family. And I love that about her. You know, she was a very beautiful soul, and I'm very grateful to have her as a grandmother. Yeah. Anybody else?
Of course. The ice cream incident, that I ate a lot of that ice cream. When Ginger and I went down to Argentina, we came back in 2010, and she was making ice cream. Let's see, what was it? She'd broken her rib. Crazy. And no, cleaning off the top of the refrigerator, and then she tried to she started to fall backward and grab the door for the freezer, and which always works. It works for me. And she was standing on this little step ladder, and so she went backward and hit the stove behind her. And no, she survived that one. But yeah, we came back. Ginger and I came back, and we took care of her for a while. I'd say around 4 months. And during that time, yeah, the ice cream. You want to know where that went? Well, she had a lot of friends in the trailer park that was coming over, but I was there. And ice cream is just something you can't turn down. And I'll tell you what, uh, depending on what you feed a goat, that's what kind of ice cream or milk you'll get. If you feed a goat something really, nasty, then you're going to get this gamey taste. These goats were really well taken care of and had the best food, and we could tell. That ice cream was just wonderful. So I've got a memory. I was probably somewhere around 12, 13, and I come home from school and was about to go to a friend's house, and I decided I was going to just let Mom know because I knew she would be up. This would be a time for her to be up and around, and so her door was cracked open, and so I just poked my head in and said, Mom, I'm going to go over to Umpty Ump's house. And then I saw that she was kneeling at her bed. And I said, I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't know. And she said, as she turned her face toward me with a smile, it's okay, he doesn't mind. I thought, he doesn't mind? Why, of course. I had a different view of God from that point on. Here was someone that I really could talk to, that I could have a relationship with, and know what bothers him and what doesn't. And I'm really grateful for that moment. Okay, I'm ready to pass it.
I'm supposed to follow. I want to tell a couple of funny stories, and Tanya might remember this one. One of my trips home for the summer during Argentina, I stayed with Tanya and her family, and we were in a room where there was a bunk bed, and Luella had decided she wanted the top bunk. And that was okay, I said, sure, you can climb up there. I didn't really want to, but I thought I really should be up there, and I kept saying, no, it should be me, it should be me, it should be me. Well, I had gotten up early one morning and was in the kitchen, and Tanya and all the kids were up as well. We heard this loud crash. And we go running into the room, and the top bunk had fallen while she was in it. And she was still on the mattress and jumped up and said, I'm fine. She didn't like the ceremony that we kind of gave. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm fine. And another one is, now, I had a little sports car, and it was a convertible. And we were driving in California, and her wonderful son decided, Mom should try riding in your car with you. And it's really low to the ground, so number one, she had a hard time getting in. And then we started traveling, and I tend to drive fast. I admit I have a lead foot, so we were going really fast in the nice weather, and we got to the next place we were going to stop, and she got out and just said, I don't want to do that anymore. So those are my two funny stories.
That's Rachel. Hi, everybody. I'm one of her other grandkids. It's weird for me to think of her as Luella because I don't think I've ever called her Luella in my life. For me, she was just grandma. My earliest memories are the blue house in Ukiah. It was very blue. You really couldn't miss it because there was no other house that was painted that color anywhere. Yeah, it looks like you got it like on a good deal or something. Um, my memory of her house was that there were a lot of books, and as a kid of the '90s, usually wherever I went, there would be TVs and screens and things like that, and there was absolutely nothing like that at Grandma's house. And I'm sure that I probably protested a lot, at first, but as I went there more and more, it was something that I really liked about her house. Everything seemed to really slow down. She didn't have any TVs, but she did have tons and tons of books, and the ones that I remember the most were the Dr. Seuss books. And now, whenever I'm looking at Dr. Seuss books, I always think of her and her house, and I'm sure. I think we probably have a lot of the same books. I also remember Tinker Toys and Lincoln Logs, all kinds of toys that were from like the 70s that you never see anywhere else. And they were always the same toys, no matter how old I got. It'd always be the same toys at Grandma's house. I'm sure that's probably like a pretty common thing, the same toys at the grandparents' house. Um, and while you were talking, Jesse, I kind of remember one other memory because you mentioned the ice cream. And I remember her telling me that we could make ice cream. And I think it was because I had a bunch of energy and she wanted to like have me go do something. And she told me if I turn, like, we put, the ice in, your ice around, you put the milk inside. She told me if I turn this lever, it'd make ice cream. But she didn't tell me how long it would take to make it. So I kept on turning it and turning it and turning it. And I'd ask her, like, is there ice cream yet? And she'd, like, shake it or something. And she'd tell me, no, not yet. Just keep turning it. And I actually don't remember if I even got ice cream out of it. I just remember I did turn it, like, forever. But I have no memory of if there was any ice cream from it. Anyway, those are the early memories I have of the Ukiah house.
Hi, my name's Christian Javinsky. I've been playing the piano here at this church for many, many years now, and Luella, she was soft, beautiful, but she wasn't timid. She wasn't one to shy away. She was a woman of intention. If she had something she wanted to express, she would let you know, and she wasn't shy to give me constructive criticism of my piano playing or singing on certain days, both positive and negative, and I always appreciated the fact, that she was willing to come to me and always had, was willing to express her opinion. And one of the ones I remember the most is probably 5 to 10 years ago. She told me, because we used to always truncate a hymn, just to save time on the service. We'd take a verse out or something like that. And she said, well, why do you do that? She said, like, they're all there for a reason. And from that day forward, we've always sang every verse of every hymn. It doesn't matter. And so, it's just, she was that person. Like, she said it, and I took it to heart, and I hung on her words. They were every word she used was valuable. She never too many or not enough. And I respected that a lot about her. So.
Oh, just if you could pass it down, please.
Hi, my name is Vivian, and I also go to Focal Point Bible Church. Every month we have prayer night, and when Luella did come on Thursday nights, I was shocked to see her kneeling on the floor, and no one else kneels when we do prayer night, but she did, and I took it to heart, and sometimes I'll model that to our little 3-year-old, and so it just really shows that it doesn't matter how elderly you are, it matters that, not to say that kneeling is the only way to pray, but I'm just saying that seeing that really touched my heart, and she just was there for a really long time praying silently, station by station, and I was just really blessed to witness that, because my father did something very similar. He was always on his knees praying, so I really appreciate her modeling that life of prayer, and thank you.
Please? Please. All right.
I'm the youngest. Yes, I'm the baby of the family. So, thinking about my mom, oh, thinking about my mom praying, one time, we had some weeds in the backyard that my mom said was edible, and she sent me out there and told me just to pick the silver leaves. I forget what the plant was called. Lamb's quarters is what she called it. Pick the silver leaves. You fry them in the pan with onions and add eggs, and that was going to be our lunch. And I think it was this same time we sat down to eat, and we she said a blessing, and then I said a little praise, then she said a praise, then I said a praise, then she said a praise, then I said a praise. And we were just having such a good time that by the time we got around to eating, the food was cold. But it was such a wonderful time together. We really had a wonderful time just praising God together. And that goes to another story about praising God. We went through this time where we praised God for everything. They had read a book. Do you remember the author? Carruthers. Power and Praise. Okay. Anyway, so they were like diets, fad diets. We were doing fad religion. Praise God for everything. It's a good idea. Praise God for everything. And so she is praising God for everything, and the stove went out. And so my mom was praising God for everything and bought a new stove. Within a week, the refrigerator went out. Praising God for everything, but we don't have enough money for a refrigerator right now. So we lived out of a cooler. And it was a real good introduction to life without a refrigerator, which I had never thought of before. You buy your milk every day and keep it in a cooler, just a little bit of milk, because you can't keep a whole lot of milk good, in a cooler for a long period of time. Anyway, it was really neat to see her face these difficulties and praising God, even though she said that the refrigerator going out was a really tough one. Does anybody else want to say something?
Warn you ahead of time, I'm a crier. So I'll try to get through it. Yeah, that's true. It is true. Um, I've known Tim a long time. My name's Donia. I've been long-term friends with Tim way before he got married to Mary. We're friends with Mary and Tim, and then now Teresa and Tim. And we just had the wonderful privilege of the last, 6, 7 years or so. My mom came back here. She had to come here to live. And so I was struggling to, okay, well, now what? She left all of her friends because she couldn't live alone anymore. Luella and Ruthie became her friends and her tight knit. And the joy we would see amongst them, just talking about the Lord, talking, singing, just, relating to that era in time that we don't understand as much. And it has been wonderful to walk together. What a precious, precious privilege I had to be present when both went home to be with the Lord. And to be able to sing them into glory was fabulous. And a privilege that I will hold with me. And I have now told Teresa and Tim that, they owe me because my mom's in hospice. So they have to be there with my mom when she gets to join them. And I'm so grateful for this time to know that we can finish well and that we as daughters and sons and grandchildren can walk alongside our elderly as they walk home. And a memory that I wanted to share that was so sweet and so speaks of Luella is the day that the Lord took Ruthie home. Luella hadn't really wanted to come into the room since she was home from hospice, and she'd kind of been avoiding it. And Teresa and I were there singing, and Luella leans over to Tim and goes, "We should join them." So they came into the room, started singing, and out of the blue,
Luella just got up, stopped singing, walked over to Ruthie, and took her hand and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm going to walk you to glory." And stood with her and was there until she took her last breath. That is a woman of God who not only lived her faith out every day, but when it was time to step up, Luella was there and understated, absolutely strong in her faith. And we sat afterwards just praising the Lord and thanking him. And so I just want to express my gratitude to Tim for inviting me into his life, into his family, and letting me be a part of Luella's life and his siblings. And now, of course, I really have to thank him for marrying my best friend.
My name's Elliot. I was helping Tim with some yard work about 3 weeks ago, and I thought I would share this story because it's so recent. I was sitting at the table across from Luella at dinner, and she brightens up and looks at me and says, "Wouldn't it be fun if?" And then she wasn't able to finish the sentence, unfortunately. But my comment is that, like, even though she already knew that she was very close to the end of her life, like, she saw the world in terms of hospitality and cheerfulness and coming up with fun things to do with people. She was just getting to know me, so like she's trying to make me feel comfortable at the table, and I want to just express that that's a wonderful quality.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh. I think it was last Easter that I got to go with my friend Joni to Tim and Teresa's house because they weren't able to come to church because they were taking care of Luella. So we kind of like brought a little church to them, and we just went to their house and we sang a few hymns with them. And Luella was still singing even just this past Easter, and it was just beautiful to be able to get to sing with her one last time. And I'm sure there were other times after that, but other Sundays after Easter before she passed. But that was a real blessing to still be able to sing with her.
My name is Jim DeBolt, and I'm the substitute pianist at this church. And when I was asked to play at the piano, they told me that Luella was going to lead the singing. And she had a little pulpit right down here. My most precious moments were to watch her lead that singing with the glory light shining all over her face. And that will always be my memory of her, how she loved the Lord and how that love just shone right out of her to the glory of God.
Hello, testing. Yes. Hi, my name is Jamie. I ran into Tim and Teresa. They were helping our family out with a very serious and personal issue that we were dealing with, and I just remember the warmth of Luella at the house and the warmth of Luella in the fellowship hall. She would always greet my children with a smile, and the thing that was most impressive to me is just you could see the love of the Lord in everything that she did, especially in how she treated others and how she treated me and my family. And I just want to say I'm grateful to Luella for that, to the Lord for that, and to the Case family. Thank you so much for the privilege of knowing her.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I was adopted into the Case family as an adult. I had several kids by the time that I met Luella and the Cases. And um, my favorite memories of Luella is holding my babies, rocking in the chair, singing hymns to them. And it was so special, just the way that she loved them and she cared for them and cared for everybody that came into the household. It um, Jamie talks about the way that she lit up at church, and I remember every time walking into the Case household and seeing her beautiful smile and giving her a wonderful hug. Um, it, those are my favorite memories of Luella.
I'm not the one known for more than brief, but anyway, uh, that was the kind way to put it, right? Anyway, I came to this church in October of 2017, and a month later, it was Martin Luther's 500th anniversary of nailing his thesis or whatever they were called on the door. And after church, Luella and I were talking, and I don't know how we got off on that particular subject, but she says, I've got a movie at the house. Why don't you come over? She didn't know me or Jim, but she said, well, bring your husband. And so we went over to Tim's house, and we were there a couple of hours, and we had such a lovely time just sitting and talking and watching that movie. And she didn't know us, just an open invitation out of Christian love.
She didn't know a stranger, did she?
I don't think she did.
Anyone else? Please. Do you have anything else?
Thinking about, Mom welcoming you into her home. Like Lois said, we had a lot of strangers came into our home in the 70s. And she told me this story. It wasn't unusual to have a group of people just show up. And she had made spaghetti for the family that night, and that was enough for the family. And all of a sudden, a group of 6 or 7 young men, hungry young men, appear at the door. And of course, they welcome him in, and they sat around our table, this joined, and alarms were going off inside of her. Do I have enough? Because I just made enough for my family. Didn't think about having a group show up. They came and sat down, and the spaghetti and everything just kept passing around, and the bread, and it seemed like everybody had enough. She said when the day, when everybody was done and started cleaning up, there was still spaghetti left. And she said, I don't know where it all came from, but everybody was full, everybody was happy, and there were leftovers. And so that's one of her stories. Yes. So we had a lot of strangers come into our house, and they were welcomed, every single one of them. Yep.